Good morning. My name is Dermott Crombie. I'm with Ingersoll Rand. Ingersoll is an American multinational manufacturing company publicly traded, listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Probably a little different to Marilyn's story. So just a little bit about myself, maybe just to help set the scene. And to go back to Eric's opening comments, I am currently building a passive home, Scandinavian as it happens, but building it in the west of Ireland. No point in making this easy. I am putting in a self-contained sewage system, so I note with interest where you are at this point. While my background is in engineering, so I would know a little bit about thermodynamics, a little bit about heating and ventilation from our company. What I have had to learn an awful lot about was regulation. But we're getting there. So that's just a little bit of setting the scene. See if we can get this. So a little bit about Ingersoll. 40,000 employees. Eventually, Marilyn, you'll be there. It brings its own challenges. So 40,000 employees, about $14 billion turnover. In a number of areas we're involved. So for instance, golf cars you might be aware of. But at one point we were the biggest manufacturer of electric vehicles in the world. Trivia. We're big into manufacturing and supporting efficiency in manufacturing. Another big area we're involved in is a brand called Thermo King, which is transport refrigeration, and we'll be coming back to that a little bit. And also air conditioning for buildings. And obviously these, both the transport and the building HVAC, we were watching hugely with interest the last couple of weeks in Paris with COP21. So some of the challenges we're having going forward. Urbanization is obviously a big challenge. The population worldwide, along with growing, is also moving to cities. We also have challenges going forward on food and water availability. Then we have more immediate challenges, technical challenges such as refrigerants, energy efficiency within the existing building stock. If we just take an example such as food, 80 years ago, people ate food, fresh food, that was grown within 100 miles of where they lived in season in the developed world. That's just 80 years ago. Today in the developed world, you can eat anything you like, any day of the year, pretty much in the developed world. So you can have strawberries at Christmas, you can have kiwis that your parents didn't have, and that's all been brought about by transport refrigeration. So it's become ubiquitous in our lives, certainly in the Western world. In the same way, buildings have evolved enormously, and we have climates now. We have comfortable climates, indoor climates, that we didn't have not that long ago. So if we talk about opportunities going forward, 75% of the infrastructure globally that will exist in 2050 has yet to be built. In India, 85% has yet to be built. The infrastructure that will be in place in 2050, 85% has yet to be built. Now, that's an opportunity, and maybe we're starting from scratch, so we can look at it as a positive and get it right. But it'll have to be very right. We'll see a 70 to 85% increase in our urban population in the next 35 years. And within those urban populations, we will require a quality of life. Now, cities, and certainly in Europe, Western Europe, are looking at the quality of life for populations within cities. So, for instance, we have noise standards, we have emission standards, but overall, how they're measuring success, for instance, in London, is longevity. how is life expectancy growing within cities? And it can be down to reduced noise, it can be down to better air quality, more green spaces. There are many, many factors. But obviously getting our environment right is very, very important. But the key measure is longevity. Interestingly enough, in the US, 80% of the houses that will be used in 2050 already exist. So it's the opposite way. So now we have to get clever solutions for the existing building stock. So we have a dual challenge here. And to take another example, today there are around 1.5 million refrigerated containers in the world, and there are around 2 million equivalent truck units in the world carrying food. With the phase-out of high global warming refrigerants, we need solutions for that existing stock. If we simply switched off the existing stock of refrigerant tomorrow and you watched the equipment availability decline, then you would have another challenge. So people expect that the food supply will remain in place. It's obviously very important, but we need to have solutions for the existing equipment, plus develop both on the housing side and on the transport refrigeration side. We need to develop solutions to support the existing equipment installed base and to develop new solutions long-term going forward. We also have the challenge that by 2050 we will have somewhere between 2.5 and 3 billion extra people on the planet. Now, with COP21 trying to hold various emissions levels at the same level, the per capita emission that we're going to have to get to is going to be greatly reduced. As you can imagine, the population is growing. So we have quite a number of challenges going forward. So some of the competing values in innovation. We have control on the one side, and there are various constraints. Time, people, money, and then creativity, which needs to be a much more free process. And if we can quote from Professor Jeff de Graaf from the Haas School in the University of Michigan, he believes that tension between control and creativity is not only healthy, but it is in fact necessary and a source of innovation. The goal is to find a balance between exercising the control when working with constraints and not hampering creativity. So how do we do it? We have what we call the innovation funnel. So we have ideas to explore. From there we have hypotheses, and we try and validate those, and ultimately get to new offerings. And these need to be at scale. And this is always the rate determining step. How long will it take you to get to scale? And have you the patience to get there? We have no shortage of innovative ideas coming at us. We have internal and external. And one of the things we have found about internal is that diversity of the workforce is a key contributor to innovation within the company. And then from outside, we have a constant flow of ideas coming at us. A day doesn't go by without some new idea being presented to us. And then it is for us to understand and help our own internal investors within the company understand, is this a good idea? So we begin to make decisions on which of those ideas are the most viable. And we go through the process then of culling down to a subset of ideas that fit our business and the needs of our customers. We can't look at every idea that comes at us if it's not something we're familiar enough with. Then we have the private sector dilemma. Do we innovate early, or do we wait for regulatory certainty? And we've tried both, and again, it might make for an interesting study at some point to see where success lay. For instance, new refrigerants now are on the table. We've come up with a solution for our transport refrigeration business, which halves the GWP of our refrigerant And rather than try and have a boutique solution unique to ourselves, we've thrown it open to the industry. Because commercially, we'd rather have it available globally. Bigger market, lower price, should be an easier way to go. So we actively went ahead of legislation which we could see coming and developed a new solution and then threw it open to the industry. And now we need to partly wait for the industry to adopt it, but the other thing is we've decided from next January, next year, so a couple of weeks, that we will make it standard in our products. So we kind of get past that point. But I will say that right now, commercially, it's not an attractive solution because it costs more. New solutions tend to cost more money. But if we talk about the private sector dilemma, you know, innovating early, here's a case where we innovated early. But we believe it's the right thing to do. And so we've responded to the to the European F-gas, and the US is following, not too far behind. But early action brings risks that the markets may not be receptive to the new technologies. So we have to be cognizant of that. Another area that we chose to do, and again, it was when it wasn't. I suppose everybody wasn't doing it. Let's say we made a climate commitment in September 2014, and this was as much to set a challenge for our engineers within the company, and also to set and for our operations within the company, but also to set clearly our goals to our customers. And what we set out to do was to reduce a commitment to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions from our equipment by 50% by 2020, to invest 500 million in R&D in reducing greenhouse gas emissions over the same period, and to reduce our own operations. And as I said, we have 40,000 employees in many, many factories around the world. A 35% reduction in our own emissions within our own operations over that period. So I suppose we've gone ahead of the curve. We're taking the early action, and we'll see how it plays. But we're confident that it is the right thing to do, both for our company, for our investors, and for the environment. Thank you.